Hey guys, Ryan Fowler here with the great, famous Teresa Kuhn. Inner Masculine Live. I'm Inner Masculine. Teresa is Inner Feminine. Doing our Friday show. We have an amazing show today. This topic, it's kind of one of my favorite topics. There is no greatness without adversity. Why are we doing all this suffering, huh? So we're going to talk about it. Teresa is going to share her personal experiences. I'm going to share mine. We have seen many people who have struggled mightily with all sorts of things and then overcome and then have a level of wisdom, confidence, toughness, resilience, compassion, patience, all these things acquired only through adversity. So we're going to talk about that. It's going to be great. There is a purpose to it all. First off, you see in the bottom left of my screen, innermasculine.com/free ebook. Now, you can go there, put in your email, get the free ebook on how our subconscious mind works, why it holds you back. It's a 1-hour lead, but it lays down the fundamental. I've never seen anyone just lay down the fundamentals of here's how your subconscious works. Here's how it develops. Here's how it affects you, how it's directing your life. Carl Jung, the father of modern psychotherapy, said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So learn what's going on. That is the first step to gaining mastery, because you can actually not just get your trauma out, get the bad programs out, but you can put optimal subconscious programs in and then just major up level. We see it time and time and time again. And at the end of the book, if you want a 30-minute, no cost, no obligation consult with me, there's a way to get it. That is at the end of the ebook. So just go there, get the ebook, no charge at all. Just pop in your email. And Teresa Kuhn, welcome to the show. How's your week been?
Hi, Ryan. I've been great. Thank you. I spent actually last week up in the mountains of North Carolina. And it was spectacular.
Yeah, in the summer. Lots of green in North Carolina.
Amazing amount of green. Yeah, it was stunning, gorgeous, beautiful.
And how do you feel about today's topic? What are your thoughts before we dive in?
I love the topic. If we remember this when we're in our pain and in the middle of adversity, it can give us faith and hope and see the bigger picture, right? Because we can connect those dots, and we could talk about this when we're ready to. But do you want my opinion on the topic right now?
Yeah, maybe just give us your just a overview, a summary and then we'll dive into more detail on is there purpose to adversity? What can be gained from it? And yeah, what to you is the proper mindset to help us through adversity?
Well, one of the quotes that I love from Steve Jobs more than any other one I can think of is, we can't connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect the dots looking backwards, right?
Yeah.
And if we look back on our lives and look back at those times that were the greatest struggle or the greatest adversity or where we had the greatest fear about what might happen in the future, or when we were in the most pain, and we could talk to ourselves, from
the most growth,
the present, going back and saying, hang in there. I know what's going to happen. I know how you're going to grow through this. I know how your life is going to change because of this pain, this struggle, this adversity. What would we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Hang on there. All will be well. And it was those moments of pain and struggle and adversity that we grew. It's not in the winning that we grow.
Yeah, winning is just kind of like, the cherry on top of the sundae.
Right. And we love to win. Who doesn't want to win?
Yeah, it's great. Alex Hormozi, he's like age 31. He's worth 100 million plus already, probably 120 now. He talks about this cycle of failure leads to growth, leads to success, but success leads to complacency. And he's like, how can we cut out the complacency part and get back to the growth. Well, he says leads to complacency leads to more failure. But so it can be kind of a cycle. There's ups and downs in life. That's how it is. But I will say times in my life, and I asked Teresa to, if she's willing to share some personal stories, and of course she is, because Teresa's great like that. But I have had times in my life, back when I was, everyone knows my story. My mom, narcissistic personality disorder, and felt worthless, and manic depression, and anger, rage, general anxiety disorder, all of that. And overcoming that, if I didn't go through that, I would not be helping people now. And I literally, like, a few times a week, someone emails me and tells me I changed their life. And it's like, dang, I mean, there's no way I would be doing that if I didn't have this horrible upbringing that made me feel really bad about myself at a deep core level, that led me to search and search and search until I found a methodology that just blew my mind. I wouldn't have been looking for it if I didn't have that pain in me. And I mean, we can swap some stories, but my first business failed. And after my first business failed, my car got repoed. I couldn't pay my rent. I had to move back in with my parents at age 29, which was, I felt like the biggest loser on the planet for 6 months straight. Eventually started another business, became, successful, kind of a dream job. I thought it was my dream job until I found what I'm doing now, which is my real dream job. And man, if my first business would not have failed, if that would have become successful, it was a marketing company, and we did phone sales. And honestly, I think it would have kind of sucked if it would have been successful. So it's like, a door closes, another window opens, and it led to better places. But what are some experiences, some of your personal experience, or any life lessons from you or someone but it's always the best when you tell your own experiences. How do you have any experiences where adversity has shaped and benefited you, and what was the benefit? Maybe tell us a story, Teresa.
Well, before I go there, I'd like to comment on your story.
Yeah, you can ask me questions about mine too. Go ahead.
Well,
I gave kind of a teaser.
So some perspective, your marketing company failed. You had no money. You had to move back with your parents.
Yeah, I was broke.
And I'm going to just ask you, like, your upbringing sounds like it was a bit of a war zone, right?
It's a psychological war zone.
It was a psychological war zone, right?
Yeah.
And from a really low place, you found yourself back in that psychological war zone.
Yeah.
How
actually, when I got back, my grandfather and grandmother were living with my parents, and my granddad was a narcissist. So it was like double narcissist. By the way, they hated each other, but that's another story.
So how did you navigate? And I know you didn't have any of these tools, but you were in a really low place, going back to the battle zone or the war zone with that same environment.
How did I navigate it?
How did you navigate that?
Honestly, I did a lot of praying, and I'm not devoutly religious like I was before. I'm much more spiritual, but I actually feel I did get some spiritual guidance at the time. And here's the thing that I've noticed. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in other people's lives. We go through some big failure. It'll devastate us. It will knock us on our butt. And we might be in the pits for a while. But it's only temporary. For most people, it's only temporary. Now, I'll tell you, when I was in college, I was riding a bus one time because I used to teach guitar lessons. I studied guitar in college, among other things. And so I was on my bus ride to teach lessons, and there was a guy on the bus I keep seeing, and we talked about his story, and he said that in college he fell into depression and never recovered. So now he's just this really poor guy on welfare or disability or something like that. And he never recovered. That can happen. But for the vast majority of people I know, when crap hits you, it's only temporary, because it's not like crap hits us and all of a sudden we don't have any more power. There's no opportunity out there. You know, opportunities everywhere. So is challenge. And we, you know, my tagline, you have more power than you know. We have more power than we know. And after a while, down in the dumps, you know, I think after a while, our brain says, okay, you know, you're down in the dumps, but things just kind of change. Your mood kind of improves. Now, for me, it was 6 months. Honestly, I felt like crap for 6 months. And then when I built my new business, it took about 2 years to build it. And I was making about $1,000 to $1,500 a month for 2 years living with my parents. But it turned around and it took off, and the rest was history, you know? So there is something to be said for putting one foot in the front of the other. There's something to be said. Hey, if you get knocked on your butt, take a rest for a while, ponder, contemplate. There are psychologists that talk about, why do we get depressed? Is there any purpose to depression? Now, I'm not talking about toxic shame depression, but just like, is there any purpose to us getting depressed when life hits us really hard? And well, what happens is you kind of withdraw to your cave, or, you know, and you start pondering. And after a while, I think our brain is wired to do that, so we can kind of figure stuff out while we're depressed and then find a new direction. And then it happens. And life is not only failure. It's not. You know, Thomas Edison tried 1,000 times to invent the light bulb, and he failed 1,000 times, but then he had big success. A mutual friend of ours, you know, who is extremely successful, and I asked him how he felt about failure, and he says, I'm encouraged by failure. And I said, wow, that shocks me. I thought you'd be unfazed by failure, but you're encouraged. Why? And he says, because there's only a limited number of failures before you have that big success. Each failure is a milestone. That one of those limited failures is behind me and I'm closer to success. I feel encouraged. Literally felt that way. This is people who go through failure after failure after failure, adversity. Sooner or later, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to learn that lesson, that it's not all it's failures, and then boom, big success. Now you're up leveled, and you learn and you grow along the way. The more we do anything, the better we get. It's only a matter of time before you learn enough and grow enough to have enough skill to get what you want. So brighter days are ahead, baby. That's just how it is.
I've got a couple comments on what you
said.
You know, I have a little bit of a rant about the things that they don't teach us. Yeah, it is, right?
Don't get me started. I'll let you go.
But one of the rants, and maybe one day that should be one of our shows, right? Is you know, the things they should have taught us, is that life is failing forward.
It is.
We should embrace failing forward.
What makes our souls, us as humans, so great is the more we do anything, the more we learn and the better we get. That's how it is with everything.
If you have the right mindset, because so many of us are
you could be like my friend on the bus who fell into a depression, never recovered.
Or just even not, you know, that's so unfortunate. And there's so many.
Yeah, he was like 50 when I was talking to him.
But he's externalizing. You know, he's an example of someone who took that depression, and it appears on the outside that what a shame. Like, he's not living to his human potential. But that's every single one of us. It just doesn't materialize in us being homeless or being on a bus all day. Yeah. That's the expression for him. All of us are walking around where, if we could truly see, if we were God and looked down at us and said, you know, Teresa, the life you're living right now is exactly like that man that you saw on the bus, who's homeless, who's not living his potential. I really believe each and every one of us is living a life much smaller than our human potential.
True.
So, we're taught, and I don't know if it's by design, I don't know if it's a conspiracy, I have no idea. But life teaches us you've got to be successful. When you do something, you've got to, you've got to learn it and do it right immediately. What if we taught our children that it's normal to fail forward? And that's feedback that tells us, oh, this didn't work. Let me try it a different way. And let me try it a different way. And let me try it a different way until I get success. And we get dopamine hits, or our chemicals work on behalf of us when we fail forward, knowing that the success is around the corner.
Yeah, you're inspiring me to show a couple of clips here. So let me, I'll play, well, give me just a second. I'm going to bring these up. These are great. I'm going to show you two of the guys I really like. One is alive. The other passed away a few years ago. And one is one's a video clip and the other is just a photo. The other one of them, you only need to see a photo. So here's the first one. These are people who achieve greatness through adversity. Now, you're going to laugh when you see the title of this news article. All right. The crazy sex life of a woman and her 2'8" man. So this guy, do you know who he is?
I do.
What's his name?
I don't know.
Sean Stevenson. Born with brittle bones. You can see he's horribly deformed. Only 2 feet 8 inches tall. He got a PhD in hypnosis, of all things. What a stud. This guy is like, I call him inner game Yoda. He passed away because he fell down and got a concussion because all of his bones are brittle. He passed away a few years ago. But he passed away age 40. He had a PhD. He was a multimillionaire, and that's his wife. And when he was born, the doctor said he wouldn't live beyond, wouldn't live much longer. And I remember him giving a TED talk where he's like, now all those doctors are dead. And I'm the only doctor who remains because he is a doctor, got a PhD. So this guy is an inspiration to millions. He spoke at Tony Robbins events and nothing stopped him. He amassed a lot of wealth, became very influential, touched the lives of tens of thousands, millions, whatever. Had a lovely wife, very nice, sweet lady. She also has a PhD. And if he did not have his adversity, he would not be the inspiration to others that he is. He's a published author too. It didn't hold him back. He achieved his greatness, not despite his adversity, but I think to a large degree because of it. It shaped who he was that allowed him to help and inspire and touch the lives of others. So I'm going to show you just one more real quick. Do you have any comments on that? Or I can go to, I have a 30-second clip as well.
No, go to the next one.
Okay. This, here's another gentleman who overcame adversity. And there's a 30-second clip about failing here. Now, this guy with the glasses, Tom Bilyeu, he used to sit on his couch all day, watch TV, not feeling good about himself, obviously, while his wife went to work. He had a big internal shift. He is really, really big on mindset. His Impact Theory University, really big on mindset because that's what changed his life. He had a big internal shift, and now he is worth $400 million.
No way.
And he went from couch potato to $400 million. He's on his third business now. His first one he sold for $120 million. Second one was worth $1 billion. And he's going to tell you the one thing that makes him special. Here we go.
Life, it made me fantastically wealthy. And now I'm looking around going, hey, there's nothing that special about me. The thing that made me successful is I'm a relentless learner.
Relentless learner. But listen how he learns. Here we go.
So I'm just unafraid to embarrass myself, to fall down, to look stupid. And because of that, while other people are laughing at me, I'm laughing on the inside.
Does that sound like adversity? Falling down, looking stupid, others laughing at you?
It sounds like failing forward to me.
Failing forward. And while others are laughing at him, he's laughing on the inside because
I'm like, motherfucker, on a long enough timeline, I'm going to win because I'll learn and I'll figure this stuff out.
And that is a great secret of the universe, is that if you have the right attitude, the more you fail, the more you learn, the more you grow until you get enough skill to get what you want, that big success.
You can't give up. You just can't give up. As much pain as you're in, as much as it hurts, as tough as life is, as alone as you might feel, as sorry you must feel for yourself at sometimes, you just can't give up. You just absolutely can't give up.
I think you can give up temporarily, but then get back up.
Right. I mean, you might go to bed, you might, and have a really bad night. You might have a really bad week, year, whatever, but overall you can't give up. Now, there's something else I want to add to, and comment about the story of that time in your life that you went from, living in your mother's basement.
More or
less. Were you literally in the basement?
It was a room over their garage.
Okay, well, close.
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah, I had an Xbox that I played the crap out of in my depression, but yeah.
So transitioning from that lifestyle to becoming an expert in the field that you transitioned to, and
my old field too.
Your old field. I have had conversations with a gentleman that you worked with.
Really?
Yes. And he shared with me.
What's his initials, or you can't say?
Oh, R.E. He was an attorney who you worked very closely with.
Oh, okay. I know him. Yeah. All right.
And you and I did work together, right? I met you. I don't know how far into the transition, but when I met you, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's like brilliant.
Yeah. Randall knew me when I was a train wreck before I got rid of my crap too, man.
And okay, we're talking about Randall. And when you hear him speak about you, and Randall's no slouch. Randall's a really smart guy. He's like, I met this guy, Ryan Fowler.
He litigates multi-million-dollar cases all the time.
Who was brilliant and knew more about this niche than practically anybody else. And that was you.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And now you've decided to shift that focus of your brilliance to impacting
changing people's lives. Yeah. Like my life was changed when I found the techniques I found that got rid of all my toxic shame, replaced it with unconditional self-love, self-approval, validation, self-belief in one's ability and value. And honestly, that's the difference between the guy on the bus and me, is I found a way. It's all beliefs. If you believe in your ability and value, you're going to be on this path of failing forward. Hey, I fell down. It's all right. I'm going to get this. I believe in my ability and value. And you keep going. And maybe you give up for a while. Hey, sometimes we try something and after a while we say, you know what? This isn't going down the path I want to go down. That's okay. That's part of learning and growing. It's all good. So what about you in your life? How have you seen adversity shape your life? What have you learned from it? How have you
had any adversity? It's been an easy ride.
Yeah,
just straight trajectory. You see that line, on a graph, it's just going straight up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now tell us the truth.
No.
Now stop bullshitting. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness. I'm not going to say that my adversity was, greater than other people. Look, at the end of the day, I believe, I truly believe we're all walking wounded. I really believe, we're little hurt children in these adult bodies, these adult meat suits, pretending to have it figured out.
Yeah, and let's be honest, some people have much more adversity than others.
No, totally. I don't want to minimize that at all.
At the same time, we don't necessarily know who those people are. Some people look great on the outside, and if you saw the stuff they went through, you'd be like,
Right.
oh my goodness. You know, you can't always tell who has a really bad adversity or not.
And we see that gentleman, you know, the 2'8" doctor, PhD, and we look at the outside and we say, oh my gosh, he must have had a horrific life, right? Like how terrible, walking around with osteogenesis imperfecta, you know, brittle bone syndrome, and being, you know, 3 feet tall, and, you know, that must be terrible. And I know, you know, I've seen him live. I've heard him speak. I know a little bit about him. I'm going to assume I know a little bit about him.
Yeah.
And I'm going to project that he was walking around saying, you poor people that are able-bodied, that can't see what I know and can't feel what I know, and can't figure out what I've figured out in order to have this amazing life.
You know, there was, he told a story about how he was at a party and someone told him, it's not fair because you're in the wheelchair, you're always the center of attention. You know, it's like, oh, you're lucky because of your handicap. And he said, well, let me show you something. So he went from this smiling, confident, happy guy telling jokes, and he put a sad look on his face and bowed his head down, and then just kind of went small and quiet and just went in the corner, and everyone freaking ignored him. Just anyone who was paying attention to him, just, you know, they wandered off, and there he was in his wheelchair, down, frown on his face, no one around him at all. It's like, no, it was him. It was him. It was his personality, his authenticity, his confidence, his positivity, his charm, his charisma, all these things can be learned. Right. And when you reprogram your subconscious, deep down confidence, deep down, the real me is the best part of me. That's one of the things I put into people's core. And then they can be authentic. They can authentically embrace who they are, let their light shine to the world. You know, we get that in your core, and that was Sean Stevenson. He let his light shine. Yeah. But go ahead. We still have to hear a story.
So what story did I come up with? I don't know.
This is Learn About Teresa time.
I have so many phases of my life that I can look back and say, oh my gosh, that was so difficult. That was so, and just, you know, I believe my childhood was not an easy one. From my perspective, from the outside looking in, you'd say, oh, you know, upper middle class, went to private schools, went to great schools. I had the opportunity to go, you know, to travel and to live a really good life. And internally, I was a very sensitive child, and I experienced life from, you know, being very sensitive to criticism, sensitive to the people around me who I did not believe had the capacity to be sensitive to my emotions. And so I grew up thinking and feeling very, you know, having very low self-worth, not really appreciating my worth. And it took me a long time to navigate through that and to figure it out. And there was a part of me, I can say, there was a part of me that did not give up. There was a part of me that chose me. And there was a part of me that chose a different path, chose health, chose love, chose a healthy way to navigate the world. And I'm very, very, very grateful for that. I chose to learn. I chose to have mentors. I chose to find teachers. I chose to, you know, not do drugs, not do alcohol, not to live a life that was going to mirror how I felt on the inside. There was a part of me that fought for doing things that would elevate my life. And I'm so grateful to that girl. I'm so fucking grateful to that girl.
Yeah.
Who chose my path.
Well, and you've done a lot of self-work. I know I've talked to you, you know, Joe Dispenza, meditation, some of my methods.
That's just recent. You know, I go back to, you know, 16, going to the bookstore. I got my license.
You've always been a self-improvement person. Is that right?
I was looking for something to help me understand how I was feeling and to give an intellectual understanding, right? And then to heal the inside. But I operate intellect first, then feeling. That's shifted for me. That has definitely shifted. I'm much more, feeling somatic now than I ever have been. But before it was, all right, I have to understand it first. But I think
I want to comment on that, and then I want to comment on that for our audience, because that's a very good point you made, and then also ask you a question. So the thing is there's three parts of our brain. There's and there's the cerebral cortex. That's where all our cognitive thought and logic and a lot of higher functioning happens. Then there's our limbic brain, which generates most, if not all, of our emotions and intuition, instinct, all of those. If you are only looking at logic, you're literally only using 1/3 of your brain. Then the other part of the brain, I think that's medulla oblongata. I'm not sure though. That is all the automated processes. So if we are only using our cognitive brain, we're literally only using 1/3 of our brain. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been the case for me. When you learn how to master your emotions, to learn, okay, what is the message this emotion is giving me and why? In tune with your intuition, which ties into our subconscious supercomputer that literally processes 1,000 times more per second. When you meet someone, your conscious mind will know a limited amount of data. Your subconscious will notice their heart rate, their breathing patterns, the dilation in their eyes, everything, and will give you feelings based on that. I mean, it processes so much more data than our conscious mind does. So when we tap into understanding emotions, understanding instinct, understanding intuition, and correct cognitive thought, all of it, we're using a much greater part of our brain and have a lot more processing power to navigate this world. And so many people who have internal pain, like emotional pain, will shut that down or numb it out with drugs or video games or just whatever. Disassociate, project to the outside world so they don't have to face what's in them. And they are literally shutting down a big part of the brain that, if it was working properly, could be a big benefit to them. Would you agree with that?
Totally. I sought the information from an intellectual perspective. I didn't know how to process the feelings part, right? And later when I went into therapy, that's when just a flood of stuff started coming out, right? Because I had figured out a way to dissociate so that I could function, and I functioned at a very high level.
And that's what trauma does. That part of our brain is trauma's emanating from it, and it's also stored in our nervous system throughout our body. We shut it down because it's too painful, but then we are literally operating on a lower level because of that.
It appeared that I was operating at a high level, right? And that was my drug. That was my numbing. That was my, instead of drinking or doing drugs, which I chose not to do, my accomplishments and my working and my, pursuits were my drug. It allowed me not to feel, because if I felt, the feelings were too overwhelming. So it wasn't until therapy that I started going to therapy in my early 20s that I started recognizing this whole, world. I remember my first day of therapy when the therapist that I finally chose to work with.
Well, and before you continue, just my question really quick. If you didn't have this original pain, would have you gone to therapy? Would have you developed this mastery and learning how to use your entire brain, subconscious, conscious? Would you have even gone down that path without this pain, this adversity?
Well, wasn't that the whole point of this session today?
I'm tying it back in.
You're tying it back in.
I know we've got like 1 minute left. Adversity is typically the pain agent that says, I got a problem, I need to fix it. And it leads to growth. It leads us to doing things we would otherwise never do.
Right.
And if we never did those things, we would never have the growth. Adversity propels us forward in ways we otherwise never would. Would you agree with that?
Totally.
See that in your life?
Totally. I didn't know anybody at 16 who was hanging out at the bookstore in the personal development section. I knew nobody. I don't know how I found it, but yeah. I didn't know. I was so strange and so weird in my, in my friends and social circles. I mean, I've always been a little bit off, but different, right? So yeah. And I think, the continuing, the next conversation we have, we can continue, because I know we got less than a minute left, but if it wasn't for all that pain, I wouldn't be where I am today.
And you're very successful, and also, I'll vouch for it, a very high quality, wise human being.
Thank you, Ryan.
You are. And guys, Teresa's a real deal. She really is as nice as she comes off. She's not full of shit. She kind of just says, okay, comments just real quick.
And you've worked with me for about 15 years
we
now.
Got a bunch of comments. Jay Lee, cheers. We learn more from our failures. 100%, Mike. Got to give myself permission to make mistakes and learn, but that I'm not worthless if I do. Welcome to the human race, Jay Lee, because that's every human on this planet makes mistakes. Are you unhappy? This too shall pass. Are you happy? This too shall pass. That's another discussion. We can't be constantly happy, but there's kind of different types of happiness, and there's some sorts you can kind of keep even through adversity, and then there's some your loved one passes away, you're gonna feel grief. That's just, it's really hard to be happy when that's happening. EC Smooth, my man. Rodoko did a session with all right, won't say anymore. Sorry. Sean Stevenson, the 3-foot absolute unit. Yeah, stud. So any final words to read? Bottom line is, if you don't have the pain agent, you won't have anything spurring you on to greater knowledge, wisdom, skill, success, growth, learning, and anything to add, Teresa, before we wrap up?
Our time always goes by.
And it's temporary. Guys, if you're struggling, I know many of you are, remember, it's temporary. Better times are ahead. You're going to learn. You're going to grow. You're going to grow in power, wisdom, skill. And, the tide comes in, the tide goes out. That's how the universe works. When you're struggling, it's temporary. Keep your chin up. Learn, grow, progress. It's all good. And sorry, anything else, Teresa?
Well done, Ryan.
All right. Thank you. That's our show. You guys have more power than you know. Thanks for tuning in. And keep pushing forward, one foot in front of the other. That's our show. Thank you. Whoops. Oh, that's